Welcome to Leadership Sovereignty, the podcast. I'm your host, Terry Baylor, along with Ralph Owens. Today, we'll discuss how morning routines help with challenges, what is in your toolkit, and failure versus learning, owning your happiness, framing your day, and setting boundaries, and the power of observation and making adjustments. Enjoy the show. And so the first area here is stress management, right? We've talked about this before, right? Those routines.
That's
I don't
it.
know, Ralph, you wanna hit on those a little bit?
Yeah, daily routine is it is the game changer for you, right? You have to have a daily routine, whatever it may be. We talked about it for us in the morning, exercise, spending time, spiritual time, right? Reflection, journaling, declarations, right?
Yeah.
Those things you have to. Thanksgiving. Yeah. Gratitude. You have to have those things in place on a regular basis to help you deal with these kind of situations, because sometimes you're just gonna you're gonna have a hot one, right? You're gonna have that leader that's just buck wild out there just doing whatever, and because of their relationships, they think they're protected and they can do whatever. So you have to put these. I mean, that routine almost becomes like a boundary for you, right? Because it sets your mind in a certain place to deal with whatever it is that
it's
you
a
have to
safe
deal
place.
with today. Yeah.
It's a safe place.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Yep.
and I'll be transparent, right? There are some days or some mornings where life's going on. You got so much you got to run here, go there. Man, those days that I don't get my routine in, I can feel the impact of it
Mm-hmm.
because of the clarity, the peace
Right.
that that comes from it. And again, right, we don't want to make it a chore and a task. It should be something that you look forward to. Granted, sometimes you're not always going to want to get up that extra hour, but it's always worth it.
Yep. So true.
It's
So
always
true.
worth it. Perfect. And then we've talked about the growth, right? Man, I think we hit on it really good, really in in our mid-year check-in when we were talking about what kind of books are you reading,
That's right.
right? And I'll expand that. What kind of podcast are you listening to?
That's right.
Right? Is it all entertainment?
Mm-hmm.
Or is there some personal growth going on there? And I'm
Mm-hmm.
just gonna share this. So Noah, my son, he had a golf tournament today, and I was listening to basically a YouTube, and the guy was just speaking about you have the right to choose your environment
Yeah.
and your thought around who you are and happy. And sometimes we're carrying things forward. Sometimes we're taking on the impressions of, quite honestly, sometimes it could be our parents, it could be certain relationships that we're in. He was like, y'all calling them relationships, but they bondage. And so what he was talking about though was about your happiness. And so what he was sharing is that if someone can control your happiness, then they also can control your disruption of that happiness. And so what he was talking about is creating this space and these places, and relationships with people who respect your boundaries and things of that nature. So long story short, Noah finished his round, and I asked him, I said, man, how'd the round go? He said, Dad, it was really good. I said, how did the show that we were listening to this morning help? He said, Dad, it really helped me a lot. And so let me make it more practical. So in golf, the beautiful thing about golf is it is a creator's sport, meaning that you can be 150 yards out, you got 5 different shots you can play. Because some guys may want to hit it low and bump and run it. Some guys may want to hit it high, and straight. And some people may curve it left, curve it right. You got all these different things. And so what Noah and I have been talking about is playing away from risk. And you play towards what's the safest shot. And I loved what he said today. He said, Dad, what I understand is what is high risk for me may not be high risk for someone else.
Mm.
So a shot that I may hit, someone may consider it high risk, but
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's not high risk.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because he said, and understanding, first of all, in order to make that statement, he had to understand who he was.
Right.
He had to understand the golfer that he was.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, and part of that was the freedom to know that, because I'm not helping him, he's playing his own game,
Mm-hmm.
that he had the freedom to choose to play the game
Mm-hmm.
that he wanted to play.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So part of that was on me so he knows he's not going to get criticism
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
about what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, because again, right, I know that this topic, here's the beautiful thing about this topic. This topic extends beyond work, guys.
Yeah, that's right.
This topic extends itself to our lives.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So everyone who's listening to this podcast, right, I think our age demographic is, 35 and a little older. We're trying to get some of the young folks on it. But so most of us are in a position of leadership somewhere. It's
Right.
at our families, at work. It could be somewhere that we're volunteering. Here's what my main goal that I want us to take away from these kind of sessions, at least for when I'm involved in them as well. I want to make sure that I'm the kind of leader that that folks can grow under, right?
Mm-hmm.
They can develop their skill set and tools, and we have safe boundaries that both entities can operate in,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the main goal here, right? Yeah, we know we're helping you deal with someone,
Mm-hmm.
right? And deal with a scenario and a situation. But
Mm-hmm.
more than likely, if you're listening to this podcast, you are a leader or you're going to be a leader.
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. Yeah.
So
And just to touch on that one point again, though, you have to continue to add tools to your tool belt, right? Whether it be to Terry's point, with Noah playing golf or dealing with people in corporate America or at your job, you have to continue to add tools to the tool belt. And you do that by learning.
yes.
It doesn't come any other way. You're not going to get through osmosis. You're not just going to wake up and it's just going to be there. You have to be intentional about learning all the tools that we gave you all. We learned those, right?
Yep.
And we're sharing them with you. And you, by listening to this podcast, you're trying to get more tools for the tool belt. But you have to be focused on intentionally gaining more tools for the tool belt as you go along the journey so that you can be more successful. It has to be intentional.
Totally agree, right? Because life is about learning. That's really what it's about, man. We never stop. And I think, Ralph, one of the things that we established early on is, look, there is no failure.
Mm-mm.
There's just learning.
Just learning.
Right. And I share this with, sports is just such a great analogy for all of this. And whenever, my children are finished, or young adults now, I guess, when they're finished doing their activities, one of the number one questions I've asked them is, so what'd you learn today?
Mm-hmm. That's right. Because if you haven't
What'd you
learned
learn
anything,
today?
you're just wasting
It
time.
wasn't as a waste. It was a waste of time. And just to share another anecdotal story from today, there was one hole, and I'm asking myself, I'm like, okay, well, how's he going to play this shot? There was a tree in front of him, and he was like, Dad, well, on this particular one, I tried to hit it under the tree, to get it closer to the green. I'm like, okay, it makes sense then.
Mm-hmm.
But we got about 3 or 4 holes down, and he had another shot somewhat similar, and he said, Dad, I'm gonna take it over the trees. I'm like, okay. I didn't understand what the decision point was on it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in my mind, I was thinking, ooh, that's risky. But
Mm-hmm.
I didn't say anything, right? Because I didn't want to cross that boundary.
Yeah, that's
right.
good.
He had already made the decision. So anyway, and the only reason I was close to him too, because we thought the ball had went in the water. And so I went to go help him find it. So he was like, Dad, I'm gonna take it over the tree. I was like, all right. So I backed off, and he hits the shot. And Ralph, it was the most rewarding thing for me as a dad.
Mm-hmm.
You know what he said?
What's that?
He said, I'm a golfer.
That's great. That's awesome.
So right? So he had learned from 2 or 3 holes before. I should have taken it on, but I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
This particular time, he took it on, and I told him, I said, Noah, there's no better lesson than that, than to be able to learn in the moment.
Yes.
And apply the feedback. Thank you for being with us today on Leadership Sovereignty. Stay connected with us on X, formerly known as Twitter, and on Instagram by searching for Leadership Sovereignty. And just like this podcast, let's all collectively grow as we go. God bless.